morning to you all. At the outset, I'd like to thank Dr. Khanna for giving me this opportunity to be here amongst all of you. And moving on to this august audience, I don't think I need to really ponder on that, yes, atrial fibrillation is a burgeoning epidemic. It is an epidemic, and as we all live longer, the incidence and the prevalence of atrial fibrillation is increasing. Atrial fibrillation is a problem which leaves us extremely morbid, and the main morbidity of atrial fibrillation is the problem of thromboembolism. Prevalence of atrial fibrillation in India, we may not have as robust data as that from the United States and Europe. However, we do have some data which says that the prevalence of 0.1% of atrial fibrillation was noted in a small study from the Himalayas. And in the general population, the prevalence varies from 0.4 to 1%, and of course increasing just like the rest of the world to 8% in those over 80 years of age. We are awaiting more robust data from the trials like RELY, ROCKET-AF, and Aristotle, which appears that the data from India would be similar to that from the United States. What is alarming is the projected prevalence of atrial fibrillation for the year 2050 was 7.56 million for atrial fibrillation only, and is going to increase when we combine atrial fibrillation and flutter. So yes, it's a global epidemic, and the problem of atrial fibrillation is the morbidity that it leaves us with. And I think much would already have been spoken on the problem of atrial fibrillation emanating from the pulmonary veins and the myocardial sleeves of the pulmonary veins in the left atrium. And not talking about types of atrial fibrillation, but yes, paroxysmal, persistent, and permanent. So as to protect our patients from the risk of stroke, it's important to pick up our patients in paroxysmal atrial fibrillation so as to start oral anticoagulants early so as to protect them from the problem of stroke. Stroke in itself is a major public health problem and leaving patients permanently disabled, and the social cost accounts approximately for 3% of total healthcare expenditures. And we do realize that when an individual gets atrial fibrillation, there is a handshake between atrial fibrillation and stroke, and as the prevalence of AF increases, the prevalence of ischemic strokes due to atrial fibrillation increases. The problem is not just that. Patients who have atrial fibrillation and those who get stroke, the stroke in that subset is more fatal. It has been shown by trials the strokes are larger, they leave the individuals more permanently disabled and are more morbid when compared to individuals who have stroke for reasons other than atrial fibrillation. In non-valvular atrial fibrillation, more often than not, it is the clot which arises from the left atrial appendage, while in those with valvular atrial fibrillation, the clot can arise from anywhere from the left atrium because the whole of the left atrium is diseased, while in non-valvular atrial fibrillation, it is more than 90% of the time it is from the left atrial appendage and results in an ischemic stroke. And of course, atrial fibrillation is common in patients who have both bradycardia as well as structural heart disease with ventricular tachycardia and heart failure, and it is early detection which is critical for the timely intervention and reduction in the risk of stroke. The present-day permanent cardiac pacing is not just limited to abating the symptoms of bradycardia or tachycardia, but helps us detect atrial fibrillation and treat atrial fibrillation episodes, as well as, of course, we know that there are newer guidelines for heart failure management with atrial fibrillation, with pacemakers. This is a small study which showed that if you were to detect patients for atrial fibrillation with ECG vis-a-vis pacemakers, surely pacemakers move way ahead. Pacemakers help us detect asymptomatic episodes in our patients with atrial fibrillation, and the newer pacemakers with more sensing abilities help us detect that even more. And the incidence of atrial fibrillation in device patients remains high. As I mentioned, that people who have structural heart disease, bradycardia, ventricular tachycardia, heart failure, the incidence in those patients for atrial fibrillation is likely to be higher. The ASSERT trial was a trial which was sponsored by St. Jude Medical, wherein it was asymptomatic atrial fibrillation and stroke evaluation in pacemaker patients and AF reduction by atrial pacing trial. The ASSERT trial is an interesting trial where it enrolled over 2,500 patients who were given a pacemaker or a defibrillator, and they were analyzed, and 36% of patients with a device had at least one device-detected atrial tachyarrhythmia, which lasted for more than 6 minutes and had a heart rate of more than 190 beats per minute, telling us that if we identify these patients and start them on a VKA, on oral anticoagulant, we could potentially protect them from the risk of stroke from asymptomatic episodes of atrial fibrillation. Not going much into the ASSERT sub-study, but this is an important slide which shows that individuals who had device-detected tachyarrhythmia versus those who did not have device-detected tachyarrhythmia, there was a statistical significance in their risk of ischemic stroke and systemic embolism. The conclusion of the ASSERT trial was that over two and a half years, there was 1/3 pacemaker patients who had evidence of tachyarrhythmias, which were of clinical significance because they stayed for more than 6 minutes at a rate of more than 190 beats per minute. And hence, the goal of the pacemakers is to suppress the atrial fibrillation, because we do realize that AF begets AF. And AF suppression, the US FDA approved algorithm for AF suppression is one, and that is the one that I will just talk about. That is the dynamic atrial overdrive pacing. Typically in the nominal settings for the pacemakers, we do not switch it on, but for patients where we are wanting to study them, we switch the dynamic atrial overdrive pacing on. And just to show as to how this dynamic atrial overdrive works, it is basically programmed to keep the patient paced most of the time. So the lower rate is a little higher. Keeping the patient paced, that means the patient will always have an A rather than a P. The programmer, the pacemaker is programmed to look time to time for a 16-cycle count. In the 16-cycle count, if it were to detect two P waves, it will immediately start the AF suppression, and that is the dynamic atrial overdrive, which you will see as in this cycle. This is a 16-cycle counter which has begun with the first P wave detected. The P wave means the patient has had an intrinsic P wave. He was supposed to have an A wave because it was to be paced. As soon as the pacemaker detects a P wave, an intrinsic P wave, it starts a 16-cycle counter. In this 16-cycle counter, it looks for another P wave on the 13th beat. You can see that there is another P wave. As soon as it starts, it sees 2 Ps in a 16-cycle counter, it starts an overdrive rate. An overdrive rate, it does dynamic atrial overdrive pacing for a specified period at a higher rate. The cycle count there was an ADOPT-A clinical trial which was again sponsored by St. Jude. Why? Because the US FDA only approves for AF suppression this algorithm because it was in this trial which showed that there was 35% reduction in AF suppression when using this algorithm compared to other algorithms used by the competitors. Most of them work similarly. Another competitor works like Medtronic would work, that if the patient were to have an atrial fibrillation, as soon as the AF stops, it would start pacing the individual at a higher rate. But it was the AF suppression by dynamic atrial overdrive which showed that there was significant reduction in the episodes of atrial fibrillation, and the patients were protected from stroke by AF suppression utilizing that dynamic atrial overdrive pacing. So what happens here again you see is that as soon as it sees 2 P waves, in the latter half you see that the pacing cycle length has reduced, implying a higher rate. And this is again that it shows that within this cycle, since it sees 2 P waves, the last 2 beats, the AA, you see that the pacemaker is pacing faster. Once the number of overdrive cycles has been completed, the device will then go into a rate recovery phase. Not going much into that, but what typically it does is that it slowly recovers its rate back to the programmed lower rate. So what happens here, again it shows, is in the latter half of the slide, in the last 2 beats, you see that the rate has increased because it has detected 2 P waves. It should always have been A paced. So as soon as it detects that, it goes into atrial overdrive, and gradually the overdrive pacing begins, and then the rate recovery begins, where it goes back slowly into the patient's lower rate. Hence, 40% of patients with a pacemaker eventually will develop atrial fibrillation, as it has been shown. AF begets AF, and the goal of AF suppression is that we must suppress AF so as to protect our patients from the risk of stroke. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Appad. Yeah, carry on, Dr. Michel.
What are the exact results in terms of stroke prevention if you compare with other treatments? What are your results in terms of stroke prevention if you compare with left atrial appendage closure, anticoagulant therapy?
Now, when we talk of left atrial appendage closure, I'm sure much has been already deliberated on that. Left atrial appendage closure is restricted for a specific population of patients. So left atrial appendage closure has its limitations, especially in a country like India, where the cost constraints are an issue. This is basically to help patients who are being given pacemakers for a reason of bradycardia or heart failure. Now, when we've given them a pacemaker for a reason outside of atrial fibrillation, and we follow them on, and we realize that we've picked up patients with asymptomatic silent episodes of atrial fibrillation, and we treat them before the patient develops a stroke. While the rationale of giving a left atrial appendage closure is for a different subset altogether. Here we are giving the patient pacemakers. We are talking of the additional role that a pacemaker can help us in projecting which is our patient who is liable to have a stroke from atrial fibrillation, and treat him according to the CHADS or CHADS-VASc scoring system, and protect them potentially from going into persistent or permanent AF, as well as the risk of stroke before the patient reaches there.
If patient is...
We are ready with the live transmission, so we will just reserve for the questions we can take later if there is a time in between.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aparna Jaiswal. Ladies and gentlemen.